Happy New Year, True Pop Media family. We made it. It's January 2026.
The dust has settled from the holidays, the decorations are coming down.
And we are all collectively staring at our calendars thinking, now what?
This is Alia's Lone Hair Senti.
If you felt like the last 2 years, 2024 and 2025, were a whirlwind of viral moments and micro trends, you aren't alone.
2026 is the year the dust settles.
This isn't going to be a year of love flash in the pan artists. This is the year where the industry giants solidify their thrones and the pretenders get left behind. So get ready for the first wave of pop news and, of course, the nostalgia that we simply can't do without.
Subscribe to True Pop Media and follow for more of your favorite content.
Today, we are doing a deep dive, a real one. We are going to map out the entire cultural landscape of this year.
And speaking of historic moments, we have to start with the biggest news of the week. We are not talking about a pop star or a director. We are talking about a dog. I'm referring to Indy, the breakout star of the horror movie Good Boy. History was just made at the Astra Film Awards a few days ago. Indy became the first animal ever to win a competitive acting award. He didn't win a special pet award. He won Best Performance in a Horror Movie. He literally beat human actors in the category. It's controversial, it's adorable, and it sets the tone for the year. It proves that in 2026, the rules of Hollywood are being rewritten. So get ready for the first wave of major pop news. We are going to analyze the future of music and cinema. And of course, later in the video, we have the nostalgia that we simply can't do without. Today we are doing a deep dive. A real one. We are going to map out the entire cultural landscape of this year. We are going to break down the Sabrina Carpenter industrial complex. We will analyze the dark psychological turn of Doja Cat. We will cross the Atlantic to see why Europe is currently beating America at its own game. And because this channel loves the Latin beat, we are going to Medellin, Colombia, to explain the Paisa phenomenon. But let's start right here in the US. The pop hierarchy has shifted. Sitting right at the top is a woman who, 5 years ago, was dismissed as a Disney girl. Let's talk about the Sabrina Carpenter phenomenon. In 2024 and 2025, she executed one of the most perfect rebrandings in pop history. She took the Polly Pocket, hyper-feminine aesthetic and weaponized it. She dominated the charts with Espresso and Short and Sweet. But here is my prediction for 2026. The coquette era is officially dead. Why? Because pop culture hates stagnation. We get bored easily. If Sabrina releases another album of disco pop about heartbreak, the public will turn on her. My sources and industry whispers suggest she is pivoting hard. 2026 is going to be her alternative rock era. I'm not talking heavy metal. I'm talking 90s alternative style. Think of bands like the Cardigans, No Doubt, or even early Alanis Morissette. She has the vocals, and now she needs to prove she's a musician, not just a meme. Expect a major collaboration this spring that will shock everyone. The rumors of a track with Taylor Swift are always there. But I'm betting on something more unexpected. Maybe a rock legend. This year, Sabrina isn't fighting for a hit song. She is fighting for a legacy Grammy. She wants Album of the Year. She is no longer an opening act. She is the main event of 2026. Now let's flip the coin to the anti-hero of pop, Doja Cat. If Sabrina is polished, media-trained perfection, Doja is the chaos we crave. She has spent the last 2 years fighting with her own fan base. She has shaved her head, trolled the internet, and posted bizarre visuals. And guess what? It's working perfectly. For 2026, Doja is poised to drop the most experimental album of the decade. We are moving away from the rap pop radio hits of the Scarlet era. The aesthetic she is teasing is industrial punk and noise rap. Think 9 Inch Nails meets Nicki Minaj in a dark alley. Doja is bored with pop perfection. She is bored with being pretty. She wants chaos. She wants to make you uncomfortable. Watch for her visual album later this year. It won't be pretty. It will be disturbing, artistic, and completely viral. In a world of polished AI-generated pop music, Doja is the glitch in the matrix. And that is why she will dominate. But if you only listen to American Top 40, you are missing 80% of the conversation. The most exciting sounds right now are happening across the ocean. Let's travel to the underground clubs of Europe. London and Berlin are currently dictating the tempo of global pop. The Eurodance revival isn't a joke or a trend anymore. Artists like Charlie XCX and Fred again paved the way, but now it is evolving. In 2026, the sound is getting faster and darker. We are seeing a massive surge in drum and bass and UK garage hitting the US mainstream. Keep a very close eye on the artist after her incredible independent success story, leaving her label to do it her way. 2026 is set to be her global takeover year. She brings that Amy Winehouse soul over complex electronic beats. It's sophisticated, it's raw, and it's real music. It is exactly what the sad girl trend needs to evolve into. Also, look at the rock bands coming out of Italy and the UK. The Eurovision effect is real. The US market is finally open to non-English rock. It's gritty, it's live, and American bands are going to have to step up to compete. But Europe isn't the only place changing the game. We need to look south to understand the rhythm of 2026. We need to talk about the powerhouse of Latin America, Colombia. For years, Puerto Rico was the undisputed king of reggaeton. But in 2026, the crown has officially moved to Medellin. We all know the queens. Shakira is a legend, and Karol G has filled stadiums worldwide. But this year, it's about the boys from the barrio. First, let's talk about Fade, also known as Ferxo. If you see the color green anywhere in culture right now, you think of him. That is marketing genius. But musically, he is doing something very smart for 2026. He is softening the reggaeton. It's electronic, it's vibey. It's what we call sad banger music. You can dance to it or you can cry to it. My prediction: 2026 is the year Fade does a massive English language crossover. I'm not talking about a translation. I'm talking about a collaboration with a US giant like Drake or Post Malone. The slang he uses, words like more and NEA, is going to be global. We will see those words on t-shirts in Tokyo and London. And then there is Ryan Castro. He calls himself El Cantante del Ghetto. While Fade is polished and aesthetic, Ryan is raw street energy. He represents the classic reggaeton essence, but updated for 2026. Why is he so important this year? Because authenticity is the most valuable currency of 2026. Audiences can smell a fake artist from a mile away. Ryan Castro feels like the streets. He feels real. Expect him to be the surprise guest at major festivals like Coachella or Lollapalooza. He will bring that heavy, aggressive pareo that gets the crowd jumping. Colombia isn't just exporting reggaeton music anymore. They are exporting a lifestyle. The fashion, the slang, the vibe. Medellin is the new pop culture capital of the world.
Guess what time it is? That's right, time for nostalgia. So, you decide how you prefer to travel, in a complex time machine or how about in the comfortable seats of a DeLorean?
Without a doubt, it is very important for us to relive those pop moments.
Over the tour, I will use a modality as the artificial intelligence presenter that I am, so let's go on this journey. See you in the past.
Now let's engage the time machine. We constantly talk about what's new, but history rhymes. To understand the magnitude of 2026, we have to look at the big 4-0. We are traveling back to 1986. It was a year of excess, of fear, and of massive cultural shifts. If you think today's pop culture is intense, let me introduce you to the class of '86. Let's look at the cinema first. In May 1986, a movie called Top Gun was released. It wasn't just a movie about planes. It was a cultural reset for masculinity. Tom Cruise, the leather jacket, the aviators, the Kenny Loggins soundtrack. It was pure adrenaline on screen. It taught Hollywood that a movie could basically be a 2-hour music video. But it was also the year of Aliens. James Cameron proved that a sequel could actually be better than the original. Why does this matter today in 2026? Because Ellen Ripley, played by Sigourney Weaver, became the blueprint. She is the mother of every female action hero we have now. Without Ripley in 1986, there is no Katniss Everdeen. We are moving past the surface level of nostalgia and into the structural engineering of pop culture because 1986 was the year that laid the foundation for the global entertainment complex we navigate today. While American cinema was finding its footing between grit and fantasy, across the Pacific, a revolution was beginning that would take 40 years to fully conquer the West. On February 26, 1986, Toei Animation broadcast the very first episode of Dragon Ball in Japan. At the time, it was an adaptation of a popular manga, a martial arts fantasy loosely based on Journey to the West. Nobody could have predicted that 40 years later, the visual language of this show would dominate youth culture globally. In 2026, anime is not a niche. It is the default setting for animation, and it all traces back to Goku meeting Bulma in 1986. The pacing, the power scaling, the transformation tropes. Shonen anime as a global industry effectively starts its modern dominance here. Celebrating the 40th anniversary of the Dragon Ball anime is celebrating the moment Japanese soft power began its slow, inevitable march into the heart of Western pop culture. We see the influence of Toriyama's kinetic action lines in everything from modern Marvel movies to the storyboards of independent films. It was the year action became hyperkinetic. Simultaneously, the video game industry was quietly subverting gender norms in a way that wouldn't be fully appreciated until years later. In August 1986, Nintendo released Metroid. It was a dark, atmospheric sci-fi platformer heavily inspired by Ridley Scott's Alien aesthetics, but without the xenomorphs. It was isolating and difficult. But the cultural earthquake happened at the very end of the game. If you beat it fast enough, the protagonist, Samus Aran, removed her helmet, revealing that the toughest bounty hunter in the galaxy was a woman. In 1986, this was a nuclear revelation. It challenged the default assumption of the male gaze in gaming. 40 years later, as the industry continues to debate representation and inclusivity, Metroid stands as the silent monolith that did it first and did it without fanfare. It prioritized competence over gender, a lesson that 2026 media is still trying to learn. The moody, non-linear exploration of Metroid also birthed the Metroidvania genre, a style of game design that is currently experiencing a massive renaissance in the indie development scene of the mid-2020s. While screens were redefining heroes, the literary world was redefining fear. In September 1986, Stephen King published it. This wasn't just a horror novel. It was a 1,000-page encyclopedia of childhood trauma. By creating Pennywise, a monster that shapeshifts into your worst fears, King codified the coulrophobia, fear of clowns, that permeates pop culture to this day. But the 40th anniversary of it matters because of its structure. The story is split between two timelines. The characters as children and the characters as adults, 27 years later. Now that we are 40 years removed from the book's release, we are the adults. We are looking back at the 1986 of our collective consciousness, seeing the clowns in the sewers of our history. The novel's themes of memory, the loss of innocence, and the cyclical nature of evil resonate powerfully in 2026, a year where we are constantly digging up the past to remake it. It taught us that you can leave your hometown, but your hometown never leaves you. The stage was also shifting. In October 1986, Andrew Lloyd Webber's The Phantom of the Opera premiered in London's West End. It would go on to become the longest-running show in Broadway history. But why does this matter to the pop culture of 2026? Because Phantom introduced the era of the mega musical. It was a spectacle. It was merchandise. It was a tourist attraction. It turned theater into a global brand, comparable to a Disney movie. The aesthetic of the Phantom, the gothic romance, the mask, the candlelit underground, fed into the goth subculture that was brewing in the late 80s and has returned in full force in the fashion trends of the mid-2020s. The song, The Music of the Night, is a seduction of the darkness, a theme that runs parallel to the darker tones of 1980's cinema and literature. Moving away from fiction, we have to talk about the reality of war depicted in 1986. In December, Oliver Stone released Platoon. We are explicitly ignoring the jingoistic fighter jet movies of this era to focus on this masterpiece. Platoon was the anti-Rambo. It was the first Vietnam film written and directed by a veteran of the conflict. It didn't glorify combat. It showed the moral disintegration of the soldier. In 2026, as we face new global conflicts and the dehumanization of drone warfare, Platoon's insistence on the human cost of war is vital. It stripped away the heroism to show the confusion, the friendly fire, and the loss of soul. It won Best Picture for a reason. It forced America to look at a wound that hadn't healed. The duality of Sergeant Elias and Sergeant Barnes represents the war for the American conscience, a war that feels just as relevant in the polarized political landscape of 2026. 1986 was also a pivotal year for the way we consume comedy and satire. On TV, The Late Show starring Joan Rivers premiered on Fox in October. While her tenure was short and ended in tragedy with her firing and her husband's suicide, it was a glass-ceiling-shattering moment. She was the first woman to host a late-night network talk show. Her acerbic, unapologetic wit paved the way for the female comics who dominate the streaming specials of 2026. Joan didn't care if you liked her. She wanted you to laugh at the absurdity of fame. That cynicism is the lingua franca of modern internet humor. On the radio, the transformation of alternative rock was bubbling. We mentioned the Smiths, but we also need to acknowledge REM releasing Live's Rich Pageant in July 1986. This was the bridge between their college radio obscurity and their future stadium dominance. Songs like Fall on Me focused on environmental concerns and the noise of modern life, themes that were prophetic. In 2026, the environmental anxiety in pop culture is palpable, and REM was singing about the sky falling 40 years ago. It's a reminder that the counterculture of 1986 was often the canary in the coal mine for the crises of the future. Let's look at the technology that facilitated this culture. 1986 was the year the .com domain extension really began to gain traction, though the first was registered a year prior. It was the year the National Science Foundation network, ENSFnet, came online, which served as the backbone for the modern internet. We were laying the pipes for the digital ocean we drown in today. At the same time, the focus on personal tech was exploding. The obsession with the Walkman, the VCR, and the NES in 1986 was about curating your own reality. Before 1986, you watched what was on. After 1986, you watched what you owned. This shift from passive recipient to active curator is the defining psychological shift of the last 40 years. We have traversed a 40-year arc across the cultural timeline. We didn't just exhume the artifacts of 1986. We dissected the expectations for 2026, preparing for a world that is ready to reject the synthetic in favor of the raw. From the armored heroes of the past to the bioacoustic rebellion of the future, the pattern is clear. Culture doesn't just repeat, it rhymes. We are standing on the precipice of a new era of certified human art. The question isn't what you will consume next year, but whether you will be able to distinguish the soul from the simulation. We are here to help you make that distinction. We don't just watch the trends, we decode the signal in the noise. This is true pop media. The future is listening.
That's all for today. Stay tuned for our second 2026 installment. Don't forget to follow and subscribe for the pop news you love most.